Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha, special edition this particular Saturday, because I'm working from home. The studio is closed and I'm trying to do the program from home, reaching out to you with the message: keep well, be well, and do what the people are asking you to do in terms of maintaining your own safety and the safety of your family and community that you live in. Now, we know, I've been watching the news for all day long, we know that we have hit more than 1 million cases of coronavirus in the last as many months. And it is a global phenomenon. It has had disastrous impact on the economies, the social conduct and behavior, political scenarios, and technology is driving a tectonic shift in the way we interact with each other. The challenge, therefore, is which segment of the society is hit hardest? We can't say that. But what are the lessons that we are learning? What are we doing to react and respond to the challenge that coronavirus has thrown at us? This is a very, very important lesson for us to learn. While thinking about it, I was wondering that what is the lesson learned? We do know one thing for sure, that nature has its own way of settling scores with us, as stated in the Gaia principle by a Harvard professor who said that the nature, Mother Earth and Mother Nature, has an inorganic and organic way to interact with each other to fix things for itself. And that's what seems to be playing a role. The second element is very important as well, is that how did it happen? Who did it? Why? Now the question in my mind, the uppermost question in my mind is very simple. We have to find out what happened after the dust settles and the virus is gone. We have to figure out who did it, where did it happen, and why. Was it a simple chemistry lab in a college or a school gone awry? The genie leapt out of the bottle and left the room and traveled all over the world by itself? Or was it some kind of a bio-warfare tested and tried? Somebody will say, this is the conspiracy theory mindset, but it's not. A thought is a thought. It comes to your mind. Whether it's right or wrong, only time will tell. And the third element of that is there has to be an accountability of whoever is responsible for that. That is a very important lesson learned, and the thing to do for all humanity, countries around the world, because this virus has hit the poorest, the rich in one single sweep. It didn't discriminate. This coronavirus is age neutral, caste neutral, gender neutral, race neutral, country neutral, economies neutral. Age, whether you're old or young doesn't matter. It has shown its neutrality in that respect. And to that end, the global response has to be of all mankind. But the important part here is, again, what is the lesson learned? Disasters will happen. This is not the first virus breakout that has caused the death of millions of people. At least the coronavirus hasn't killed millions yet. It is definitely being fought on a war footing by almost every country. It would be unfair to say X is doing more or Y is doing more. But the important part here is to be able to understand that this particular global challenge has to be met with a global resolve in this matter. Important part again here is to what lessons have we learned? Because remember, in the early 1900s, we had bubonic plague, which killed millions. The numbers are almost 13 or 14 million people. After that, we had Spanish flu, which killed over 50 million people. We came to know of this through history. And, we realized that they were all driven by consumption of animal meat. The third part is that we have had HIV, SARS, Ebola. The question here is, what did we learn from it? And that's remarkably important to understand. did we learn to be risk agile? And risk agile is all about being that are we aware of the consequences of what we are trying to do? It's extremely important to know that risk agility is key to determine what opportunity and uncertainty this kind of an event will throw again. I'm 100% sure, just as you are, that this particular event is not the first and the last. There will be more disasters, and whether how do we face it will remain important. Then is a question of have we learned to be risk intelligent, which means that understanding the true cost of inaction. That's very important to understand. Are we risk intelligent? So first one was risk agility, risk intelligence, and the third one is are we risk ready in terms of dealing with the impending change that the disaster brings about. So for example, 9/11 happened. The global population began to be aware of Islamic fundamentalism and terrorism. The people began to realize, and the world is responding to it, each in its own way. But this is very important to figure out that if we are not aware of the risks that the global phenomenon poses to us, then tomorrow another kind of a risk will come and will still be very poor in responding. There are certain criticisms that America acted slow and whatever. The important part here is that, South Korea acted fast. But what happened in Italy? Are Italians dumber than South Koreans, or Americans did not believe that this was going to happen? But behind this entire thing was a lurking doubt and suspicion that data was suppressed, information was suppressed. And today, I mean to say that in the last few days, we have also heard the call that somewhere along the line, the World Health Organization was colluding with China and in its PR effort to undermine or lower down the expectation or fear of China's involvement in the whole process. The one thing bothered me again is that why is China working overtime to make sure that it's not called Chinese virus? I am saying something, call it rose. Call it rose virus. But how the hell does it really matter? It is imported from China. A rose is a rose, call it by any name. So it is a virus that emerged from Wuhan labs in China. And China did suppress the information flow to the rest of the world. Because these kind of viruses, unless you know something about it, you can't react. It's a very nice statement by a very famous political commentator, Thomas Friedman. In his book, Lexus and the Olive Tree, that is one element that I remember forever, is that when he talks about if you know your risks, you know how to respond to it. If you do not know your risk, then you are in a panic or a fearful stage. And he gave a very classic example that if you are standing behind a bush and the bush rattles on the other side, you are suddenly fearful of what it can be on the other side. The moment you know what is on the other side, then you are now prepared to act accordingly. And that's the important analogy for us to figure out in terms of understanding risks. So coronavirus has come. It is staying with us until the cures are found, vaccines are found, and people maintain the social discipline, distances, to protect themselves and the societies and families and communities around us. It will hit us all very hard. So as we go further in the conversation, there is one thing which I definitely wanted to say, that every country's leadership is responding. This is a political challenge of gigantic proportion, for the simple reason nobody knows the impact it would have eventually. And everybody is frightened. So there is a thing called fear, and there is a thing called panic. I think by and large, I give credit to political leadership around the world that despite death and destruction, despite uncertainties and usurpation of economic life, there is no panic as yet. And that's a very good sign, because we know that coronavirus, the symptoms, the disease, what it does, we know about it. It's a sad thing that so many deaths have happened. But look at it from the other point of view. In terms of sheer percentages, the death is in lower percentage compared to the total population. I'm 100% sure that there won't be deaths like Spanish flu caused of 50 million people. That's not going to happen. I think the world over leadership needs to be complemented. Whether somebody acted slow, somebody acted fast, that is not the issue to be debated or somebody to be punished for that. I am of that opinion because each one reacts to a challenge in a very different way. So, as we dive deeper into the conversation today, I would like to say that the lesson learned from this coronavirus thing is that everybody needs to be risk aware, risk agile. Everybody needs to know risk intelligent, the cost of not acting. And everybody needs to be risk ready to in terms of dealing with the change that will come about. Stay tuned. I'll come back to you right after this short break. Politically, it has had a very significant impact on our political life of the politicians because there is nothing that we have heard in the entire time zone. Everything has been about political leadership and the challenge that it has thrown. What is a pity here is that when you doubt the integrity of the leadership by the opposition people, like if Modi ji says X, immediately the opposition begins to attribute motives to that. After all, Mr. Modi definitely doesn't want people to die. So if he's doing something, he's doing it in his own frame of reference. How can you say he's wrong? Similarly, if President Trump or Boris Johnson or anybody else is doing something, they are trying, their underlying motive is to protect social life, protect people, and make sure that this disruption doesn't cause permanent damage. And that's a very important thing to know. I'm personally speaking, I'm disappointed that the Democrats are trying to politicize the issue by saying that we want to investigate what President Trump did or didn't do. Likewise, the Congress is definitely, the White House is definitely, America is definitely trying to find out whether World Health Organization acted according to the rules or it tried to protect China. So these are important things to figure out here that, you must be able to resolve the crisis so that it doesn't spin out of control. Let's talk about certain elements of the entire conversation. One of the things which is very important to remember here is that it has had really devastating impact on the economies of the world around. We will talk about that right after this short break. Welcome back. This segment, I'm going to focus on economy, primarily because everybody is impacted very adversely around the world, because the global supply chains are affected. The global supply chains are affected, manufacturing, production, distribution of goods and services is hit very hard. But it's truly remarkable how certain sectors of the economy are operating at full throttle, if not more. So, for example, medical facilities, much needed and rightfully so, the entire medical system is working overtime to protect us. These are the new soldiers in the new battlefield. And we ought to express our sense of gratitude that these medical professionals were ready in every respect to address the challenge. That's a very important lesson to learn. In a body politic, if you look at your body, and this is the universe, then every single part of our body is expected to perform its job. Eyes, nose, ears, mouth, teeth, fingers, they all have to perform their job. Today, in a manner of speaking, physicians are performing their job to the best of their ability. And we must say, hats off to them for coming up and rising up to the challenge at the expense of their life and their own pursuit of happiness. So that said, the important part here is that we know millions of people have lost jobs. Millions of people will lose job because there will be restructuring, because any such disaster brings about a definite restructuring and adaptive change. That is what the important part is, that how do we adapt to the new change that is going to come about. However, in the American context particularly, it's important to note that American economy is essentially sound. Remember, when the market, when the coronavirus hit us, at that point in time, we in the US were going pretty well. And as a matter of fact, people were fearing a correction in the market may come about. But the correction came about because of the disease or because of this pandemic. It was not man made. It was not man made or a policy thing in the United States. So you can't blame the government for this kind of a market drop. The important part here is it creates an opportunity, just as this disaster has hurt many people. So, what are the opportunities around? Is the opportunity will be in terms of realigning investments, savings. How do we face the new challenge of the new jobs coming up, or not at all? How do we position ourselves in the entire process? That's the element of risk intelligence that I was talking to you about earlier, is to be able to respond to the challenge. So important part is to figure out whether the US economy will rebound faster than others. There is another very important part, the dependence, the globalization part of it, of the economic forces. So far, what had happened was that China became the hub of manufacturing activity for majority of the world manufacturing companies. And today, China is supplying the masks and other instruments which we need here. Think about it like this. Medicines, life-saving drugs are being made in China. And this is where it is very important to remember that are we seeing a completely new orientation to the marketing, production and marketing of businesses the way we knew so far? It's so important to remember that it is redefining the economic boundaries of countries around us. There will be rethink of the strategy in America as well as everywhere else, that do we need to siphon off or ship off all the production facilities, because per capita profitability goes very high if it is manufactured in a low cost center like China. And many US politicians are now demanding that we must bring back production, manufacturing, and become self-sufficient in terms of essential items. Yeah, let them make the garden chairs, but do we have to have life-saving drugs made there too, just because of profit motive? And this is where the world markets and world thinkers will have to rethink their strategy. Otherwise, if we just go back to being as we were, I don't think people are going to forgive that. People are looking for, if for petty crimes, people are put behind bars, this is a much bigger crime. Whether it was crime intentionally or unintentionally, I do not know that. I don't think anybody knows about it as of now. But as we gradually get to know that if it happened by mistake, what remedial actions need to be taken, that's very, very important. And this is the part which the world leadership will have to be transparent with people, because we are living in an era now, which is because of tectonic shifts in technology. We are living in an instant world of information sharing. Let's not, doubt that. Everything that happens, somebody captures it, and we have tools of media that transfers the message all over the world. This is remarkable. So if there is no action to this one, if we play coy and we play politically correct, if the political leadership doesn't address the challenge head on, people will not forget it. This is a remarkable lesson of the economic troubles that we are going through. Because those people who have lost their jobs, take India, for example, migrant laborers from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh who moved to Punjab, Kerala, or other places For even agriculture work, they were living on daily wages. They did not have the wherewithal to survive 3 weeks for non-economic activity, and they all began to run back home. Of course, it was not the wisest of decisions to run back home, because what are you going to do back home either? But the mass hysteria that was created on that account was truly disastrous, truly bad. And that's what I mean. Those hundreds and thousands of people who were, they will curse their fate, no doubt, but at the same time, they will not forgive the political malfeasance that happens on that account. If you are able to send people, instead of promoting, instead of encouraging them to stay put and protect themselves, putting them in trains and public transportation or a migration, put them at much greater risk, not them alone, but the communities they were going back to. And that's very, very important to understand. Likewise, in the US also, there will be disruptions. The people, millions of people who have lost jobs, US could afford to pump in trillions of dollars to provide support to the people who lost jobs. That's true. But how many countries can think about doing that, and how long? As the saying goes, I mean, as a student of economics, I can tell you, deficit financing or just loaning out money is not a solution to the problem. It's not a long-term solution to the problem. This needs a structural retrofit. It definitely needs a structural retrofit. I talked about risk intelligence and risk awareness. And how do you respond to that risk factor? That's very important, that in the future, if something like this were to happen again, what are we going to do about it? Point again to be noted here is that when it produces, look at the economic factor, the entertainment industry, and I look at it this way: Hollywood has stopped. There is no film production, or Bollywood must have a stop production everywhere. So there will be no movies made or documentaries made. But think about it in a different way. There are reruns, Netflix, Amazon Prime. These are the new viewership happening. People are watching reruns of events and movies. But the biggest challenge on the entertainment is the sporting industry, sports industry. We know Wimbledon is cancelled. We know that golf tournaments have been extended. We know that globally, sport, which is the most uniting element in mankind's history, that people on the sporting field, whether you are X, Y, or Z, belonging to A, B, or C country, doesn't matter. When you are playing soccer, whether in England, Spain, Portugal, or wherever else, or Germany, or France, you represent a collective ability of people from various parts of the world to make a team. And the sporting activities have been shut down. People have been asked to take pay cuts because everybody has to be taken care of. And thus it brings about another element of the whole process. Sporting industry, shipping industry, tourism industry, everything is going through a massive change. Think about what sectors of investment you will go into if you were to make an investment today. And but however, there's one element of stock market. I mean, this is my personal opinion. I know there are wiser people out in the governments and people who manage. I think if the governments are imposing quarantine, if governments are imposing social distances, and if we are being asked to stay home, I think the running the stock markets is, in my opinion, having been in the business of marketing and in the finance sector, has been singularly unfair to small and medium-sized investors, because not everybody is tech savvy to be able to trade on his own. It's one thing to use technology, but there's another thing to be able to create a situation in which high-speed traders are the only beneficiaries of this trading. And the market continues to go down. So when the market is going down the way it is going, it definitely creates depression, and it definitely creates a stress, because you see your savings portfolio, your 401k portfolio hit hard. Had the government all over the world made sure that the stock market had also closed down on a specific date, at least I know now that my portfolio was pegged at that particular point in time. It would have been much better to do that, because right now, all that you do, you watch TV and you see the market gyrations going on. And as the saying goes, very important saying, the bears are very keen that the market goes down further because they buy on the low side. So they are, media loves doomsayers. It's something very interesting that the media's role in the entire process is equally terrible, because when you cover mostly disasters, every update is about 10 more people dying or a million going to million 10,000. It's basically disaster reporting, and the media is failing in that part into maintaining the mind of the people that, okay, markets are down. If the sports activities can stall, why not the market? The buy and sell of the market, trading and everything. Do it off the TV. Do it, in the ancient way that we did it. Why not? Instead of creating a mass panic on that account. So I personally believe that if powers that be feel, the market also must come to a halt in a positive sense, to inspire people's confidence that, okay, everybody is equal and let there be a change. Welcome back. There is a very important element of our conversation today, and that is to do with religion and societal. We are all human beings, whether we are, and we are part of the global earth. Remember one thing, regardless of who we pray to and how we pray, it doesn't matter. There is one sun, there is H2O, there is the same air that protects us. Those are the life sustaining forces. The societal part of it is very important to understand. What we pray to doesn't matter. I have heard very disturbing pictures from, heard stories and seen pictures of very disturbing signs in India, where Muslims of a particular kind, I don't want to brush every Muslim under the same color, but there were certain people who are going about in a remarkable brazen way, saying that Allah will protect us, it's Allah will kill us or we will die. Now that's a very sad reflection of the teachings of the faith. I mean, think about it like this. We all know that thunder and lightning don't happen because gods are angry. We know the tsunami doesn't happen because God decided to have fun with the people of a particular area. And floods and volcanic eruptions do not happen because God decided to have fun with the people in that area. These are natural disasters that happen because of certain configuration of nature and the events around it. So the question here is that when you are requested, told to do certain things or not to do certain things, when people openly violate it in the name of their own religion, there comes a time when the right-minded people must step up to stop that. Because enforcement of law in critical is relevant at any given point in time, especially in these disastrous moments. If somebody uses his religion to impose his practice, that's unfair and that's critically wrong. And thus it is important to remember that God did not create religion. God created life. He gave us one sun, he gave us H2O, he gave us air, and there you go. The fruits and faunas, the life around us. He didn't create religion. You and I did. People did create religion, and we wrote stories about it. That's what is imperfect about religion, in my opinion, and it has to be treated in that manner. It's not God, believe it or not. It's not God. It is religion. And there is a distinction that needs to be made, because God, everybody's God is the same, and nobody on the planet Earth ever in history or time has ever met God. So if seeing is believing and we haven't seen God, then what exactly are we talking about? It is something unique out there. that created the life around us. Whether it is evolution or intelligent design, doesn't matter. That debate need not be wasted time upon. But one has to configure that thunder and lightning, the gender determination of a child, doesn't happen because of God. It happens because of chemical processes that run within our body. And that's important to realize. To that end, it is important to remember the path to God is maybe different, but the journey is the same. You can take different paths, but you all arrive at the same destination. Life and death is a continuous process of life cycle. Everybody must die. New life must come. And that is determined upon ourselves, the way we take care of ourselves. Those people who died in this coronavirus, they did not, God was not planning for their death at that time. And I'm particularly willing to take that debate on. It was not God's desire. It was an accident. It was an accident caused by man-made decisions and man-made actions. And that's important to understand. And we have to come to terms with that element, deal with it frontally. And if we don't deal with it frontally, our life will remain impacted adversely for a very, very long time. In terms of societies, we know this is another very important part that we must realize. It's very important to realize that part as well, because universally, there are features that are common to everybody. Anger, hate, jealousy, love, affection, joy, they are all universal phenomena. It is nothing to do with any one religion or way of life. Whether you are belonging to any country, any color, any race, you are happy when you see your child doing better. Every parent wants well for their child. Everybody wants to be happy when they get promoted at job or when they do something extraordinary. That's the important part. Coronavirus, bubonic plague, Spanish flu, HIV, AIDS, wars, they will always kill people. They will always kill people. The question is, did we learn anything from it? From the societal point of view, I have a desire for every people from every faith to recognize that we live under the same sunshine. And we must recognize that sunshine is the same for everybody, depending on the geographical configuration. Somewhere the sun is hotter, somewhere the sun is colder, or it's not that hot. So this is a kind of a geographical configuration, and we have to understand the societal part of it as well. Shaking hands, for that matter. We now know that when you shake hands with people, you transmit something, whether you like it or not. It's important to know that. It is a very funny thing, a corny thing to say on the television, but I remember one thing. I was observing a person in a particular social setting, and he was doing various things with his finger and hand, fingers going here, and then he came to shake my hands. Believe it or not, and a totally reflective action. This was before coronavirus hit. I did my Hindu namaste. I said to him that I have seen you. Your fingers and hands have gone all over your body. I would be very uncomfortable shaking hands with you unless you wash and come back. And that's important to realize. That there is a value to doing something is part of your system. Now, I'm 100% sure whoever that person was, he did not know namaste because he's not part of my cultural milieu. It's part of my cultural milieu, the Hindu cultural milieu or Indian cultural milieu, that we do say namaste and namaskar. And it has a profound meaning as well. And the profound meaning relates to the fact, very simple, that creation of God as a people, we are all equal. And politically speaking, with my both hands in front, I have no hidden weapon in my another hand to hurt you, right? If we are able to transmit these messages to people, greetings become different. Whether you are a left-hander or a right-hander, doesn't matter. Both hands have to come here. You don't have to do that. This is just a very simple example. Maintaining cleanliness, for that matter. Every geography has its own requirement, and every geography or the weather patterns determine the construction of houses and homes. So in our Indian context, in villages, I remember the restrooms used to be far away from the living area. But in the colder climates, you can't do that perhaps, because you would not want to be going to the restroom into heavy snow or rain or an inclement weather, because the weather factor makes a lot of determination of your social cultural life. So the point which I'm trying to make here is that our lives will go through dramatic shifts, religiously and socially as well. Importance of God will not go down, but importance of religion needs to be reassessed. I don't care how you pray, but I do know one thing for sure. Whether you are in a mosque, church, or a temple, we go down on our knees, don't we? So the question is, if we are praying on our knees to the Almighty, as the saying goes, then we have to remember that the Almighty governs our rest of the life. And if that is the case, we have to configure that element even more strongly. As the saying goes, like we have been talking about varieties of things, the role of religion, society, economics, politics, and what have you. But what is important here to remember is our own readiness. And it is important here to also bear in fact the accountability factor of the cause of this pandemic. Remember, United States will survive this ordeal, this tragedy much better than any other country. My also hope goes in the way Prime Minister Modi in India has been taking proactive measures. If this entire Markhand worship thing has not happened in Delhi and other places, perhaps we would have been able to contain the virus without, a social contact. And the 3-week quarantine that Prime Minister had asked, I think by and large people were observing it until this thing happened. So United States will survive all of it because it's a fundamentally strong economy. It's a resource-rich country. In just an analogous comparison with India, US is 3 times larger than India, has 1/4 the population, has reasonably great infrastructure in place, has wonderful communication systems in place, and is remarkably resource rich. It's not a one product country. It's self-sufficient in more ways than one. So per capita pressure on the economy would be much less. On the contrary, this country has the ability to react better than most because of its sheer determination to tide over the challenges. The challenge that will also come about is in a very different way. And, for example, many Indian doctors will feel nice that US is opening up, likely to open up thousands of visas for Indian doctors to come here. The challenge on the ethical or the moral side is whether those doctors are needed in India or they should come for greener pastures here. But that's an individual decision. I am nobody to say, but I'm saying that how America is prepared for taking actions decidedly and fast. And that's the way people must also act. And I think if individuals from India, individual doctors want to come to America, that is good for them as well as for this society, as well as for Indian societies where there are, people seek different opportunities. And that's what will be an opportunity for Indian doctors. Like every disaster is an opportunity for somebody. And that's the point which I'm trying to drive at. What in the opening statement I had said about risk analysis, risk awareness, risk adaptability, risk intelligence, risk readiness, that's the key part of this entire process of pandemic of coronavirus. What did we learn, and how will we deal with it in the future? The other part which is very important to remember also is that, media loves to promote doomsayers. And I'm sorry to say that I'm part of the media. I run a television program of my own. But positivity, maintaining the positivity part of it is key. In the entire process of yoga and meditation that you do, you are trying to become calm. Greater the disaster, greater the calmness required by all of us. Remember that. Graver the crisis, the more calm you need to get. It doesn't, if you begin to throw your hands and feet about, you will land nowhere. And this is the important thing to understand, that This is the time to maintain an equanimity and balance in your own personal life and societal life to ensure that nobody is hurt by your bravado, if I may say so. You know, what will happen? That attitude is not required. Maintaining and respecting a distance is key. Maintaining and respecting the social requirements is key. Maintaining and respecting the rule of law is key. And that's the message that must go out. Finally, I would also want to say here is that it is extremely important, and I believe in it, that the world leadership has it on its shoulders to ensure that those who were guilty of it are taken care of. If for petty crimes and petty thefts people spend time in prison, this is not that petty theft and petty crime. This is hurting the people and the planet Earth for somebody's vicarious, devilish mind. And that needs to be exposed. Friends, it has been great to talk to you in these extraordinary circumstances, speaking from home. Yeah, I did not have the opportunity to bring in some guests today because people have travel restrictions and, Skype was not working. So you had to listen to me. And I had the pleasure of sharing my thoughts with you in this way. Hopefully, by next week, I'm able to go back to the studio and record a program and do the program in a manner that we are able to do it more effectively. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got the message that in this particular moment, we are all together in it. There is no ifs and buts. We are all in it together. Coronavirus is race, gender, color, caste, creed, national boundaries, country doesn't care for any one of those. It is common to everybody, rich or poor. Queen Elizabeth got hurt, Prince Charles got hurt, got virus, Boris Johnson got virus, Canadian Prime Minister's wife got that virus. And important part is somebody has to move in this matter to really ensure that if this were to happen or this kind of a thing happen, there is a deterrent and that people do not indulge in unnecessary devilish attitude, not caring for the suffering of the mankind around us and the life around us. Respect is key. As you are is the key. Respecting as you are is the key. And to that end, I hope this virus passes off quickly. And I believe the projections are not good. They say that the worst is still to come. But I pray for all of you. I pray for my family. I pray for your family and the world around us that this particular virus doesn't do the damage that it fears. Now, lastly, I would say that it is important for us to do community prayers. Prayer is a very good thing. Do meditation. I practice meditation. Do yoga, because these are the way to maintain your own balance. It's very, very important to do that. Once you do it, you go calm. And remember one thing, being calm is the best way to have a better response to the crisis coming to you, because there is only so much one can do in his individual capacity. So whatever you can do in the individual capacity, respect it. And if you notice a scenario of price gouging, report it. And I'll tell you something that happened. I went to buy gloves and somebody in a store, and I saw certain very classification of costs. And I asked him, why are you doing this? He said, okay, please return the stuff. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to report him. Not because he took the items back, but because of the fact that he was, indulging in an activity which gives bad name to the system and the process. So it is important for us to be aware, speak your mind, tell the truth, and be fair with yourself and your family. Coronavirus will come and go, but we will have to be perpetually, forever alert that should a disaster of this kind hits us, we are risk aware, we are risk ready, we are risk intelligent, and we have a risk responsiveness to the whole problem. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Be well. God bless you. And see you next week again. Thank you.